You think cooking is just following instructions, measure, mix, cook. But in Korea, the most important cooking instruction is one no robot can follow. 적당히 넣으세요. Add appropriately. No measurements, no precise amounts, just. What does it mean when an entire way of knowing disappears? Sonmat and taste makes Korean cooking impossible to digitize. It's not just technique, it's wisdom that lives in your hands, built through years of caring for the people you feed. Right now, across Korea, the last generation of Sonmat keepers is disappearing. These aren't professional chefs, but grandmothers, aunties, and their knowledge was never written down. We are building AI that can follow every recipe in the world and analyze taste down to the molecular level, but true 손맛 cannot be collected as data or trained into algorithms. When the last people keeping your family's 손맛 is gone, what do we actually lose? Start where the story really begins. Let's start with the first word, 손맛. 손 plus 맛. So it means the intuitive cooking touch that creates emotional connections through food. Here's how it shows up in real reporting. Right there on screen, it means the intuitive cooking touch that creates emotional connections through food. See it? That whole sentence turns on one word, 손맛. Beyond the news, here's how it actually works. Use it specifically for cooking that carries emotional memory and personal touch, not just technical skill. The traditional cooking is like a living language. Recipes are the grammar, the base structure everyone can follow. But 손맛 is the poetry that makes it come alive. It's the subtle inflection, the perfect pause, the way a master speaker can take the same words and make them sing. Every grandmother in Korea speaks this perennial language fluently, but each one has her own dialect. In the mountains of Gangwon province, they've mastered wild vegetables that most people wouldn't even recognize as food. Down in Jeolla province, it's all about seafood and fermented soybeans, techniques so specialized they feel like ancient spirits. These aren't just different cooking styles, they are regional accents in the language of Sonmat, each one carrying the flavor signature of local soil, climate, and centuries of trial and error. I picture a grandmother somewhere in Korea up before dawn standing at her kitchen counter. Her granddaughter holds a smartphone trying to learn the kimchi recipe that's been in their family for 4 generations. How much salt, 할머니? 적당히, appropriately. The point can capture her words, but not the way, or whether hands test the cabbage firmness, or how does she adjust the seasoning because she noticed her son looked stressed yesterday. Since 1999, researchers have cataloged over 3,300 traditional Korean recipes, but they can't record the jazz improvisation of 손맛. You can write the melody, but the soul exists only in the playing. Next word, 적당히. 적당 plus 히, so it means appropriately, just the right amount. This line is pulled straight from an actual article. It means appropriately, just the right amount. The one word to catch 적당히. In every Korean, the nuance goes like this. It requires culture and situation context to understand the right amount derived by situation. You think digitalizing cooking would be straightforward. Just measure everything precisely, write it down, and anyone can follow along. Modern recipe apps promise exactly this, exact temperatures, precise timings, gram by gram measurements, but Korean cooking reveals a deeper truth about knowledge itself. 적당히 넣으세요. Add appropriately. That's it. That's the instruction. But here's what's fascinating. Korean cooks don't see this as vague. To them, it's perfectly clear because they understand the cultural context that makes appropriate obvious. The instruction assumes you know your family's taste preferences, the seasons, humidity, whether tonight is for comfort or celebration. 적당히 isn't missing information. It's compressed cultural knowledge that expands in the hands of someone who shares the same culture operating system. The measurement isn't absent, is encoded in relationships, traditions, and shared understanding that took generations to build. Here's where it gets interesting. The generation that should be most comfortable with digital precision is actually the one falling in love with Sonmat. 방망래 할머니 built an audience of 3 million subscribers, and the videos they watch most are the cooking ones. No fancy production, no step-by-step measurement, just an elderly woman cooking the way her mother taught her, using words like 적당히 and trusting viewers to somehow understand. The MZ generation, it calls Korea's millionaires and Gen Z, are the ones watching these videos obsessively. They grew up with smartphones, they expect everything to be quantified and optimized. But they are also the ones desperately trying to learn Sonmat before it disappears forever. It's a strange paradox. The same generation that leads the charge in documenting and preserving traditional knowledge is also the one that might be the last to actually learn it the old way. By standing next to grandmother, watching her hands, asking, how do you know when it's ready? And getting the answer is, you just know. 손맛, 손 meaning hand, and 맛 meaning taste, isn't just a cooking technique. There's no single English word for it. It's the final output of a culture operating system that most language doesn't even have a concept for. Let's start with Nunchi, the ability to read situation without being told. Next is Jeong, an emotional connection deeper than love or friendship. Is the bond that makes you care enough to do things right, not just efficiently. Here's the reversal. We think AI needs more data to get better at cooking, but Sonma works the opposite way. The less you measure, the more you understand. In the kitchen, Nunchi means knowing that tonight your family needs comfort food, not just dinner. Jeong is what makes grandmother invest an extra hour perfecting the seasoning, even when no one's watching. These aren't cooking terms. They are Korean concept for understanding people and relationships. But in the kitchen, they become ingredients as essential as salt or garlic, all flowing through her 손맛. The picture of Lobo trying to cook versus a grandmother with a 손맛. The Lobo must measure precisely. Salt 5 gram and timer 3 minutes. Every batch identical. Every measurement perfect. The grandmother works differently. 한 꼬집 means a pinch. 색깔이 변할 때까지 until the color changes. No measurement, just embodied wisdom that knows when something feels right. But here's how cultural knowledge actually transfers. The grandmother's Nunchi told her that today her grandson looked tired, so her Jeong made her add just a little more care to his favorite soup. The grandson watching her hands isn't just learning a recipe, is observing the cultural logic that connects emotional awareness to cooking decisions. This is how 손맛 reproduces itself through a apprenticeship that teaches not just technique, but the cultural reasoning that makes intuitive decisions feel obvious. 손맛 is what happens when social awareness meets culinary skill and gets filtered through generations of shared cultural understanding. And today's the last word, 소멸. The 소 plus 멸, so it means extinction, complete disappearances. That's the real new sentence, word for word. It means extinction, complete disappearance. That's how 소멸 keeps showing up in the headlines. Off the page, here's the feel of it. It's often used in formal contexts about culture, environment, or social disappearances. So this isn't just a Korea story. Throughout history, we've watched the same pattern repeat. One generation intuitive knowledge meets the next generation's systematic approach, and something essential gets lost in transition. Once oral storytellers carry entire cultures in their memory, mastercraft people held centuries of technique in their hands. Each time, we thought we could capture what they knew by writing down, measuring it, systematizing it. Each time, we discovered that the most important part the part that made it actually work, lived somewhere that couldn't be documented. Now it's grandmothers with their Sonmat. And this time, we are running out of time to figure out what we are losing. The Korean government knows it. This year, they launched the K 무형유산 지식자원 기초조사, a massive product to document intangible cultural knowledge before it disappears. They are specifically targeting people aged 45 to 90 in regions where traditional knowledge is at extinction risk. Not because they want to preserve recipes, because cultural anthropologists recognize that we are losing entire ways of knowing that took centuries to develop. The clock is ticking. And unlike those oral storytellers who were master craftspeople, these grandmothers never thought of themselves as keepers of anything important. They were just cooking dinner, but their Sonmat, the untranslatable wisdom in their hands, might be the last link to a way of understanding food and family and care that shapes how an entire culture expresses love. The solution isn't just choosing between lobos and grandmothers, it's recognizing that we are living in a rare moment when these two knowledge worlds can still meet. Right now, young researchers are racing against time to record the wisdom of culture keepers aged 49 to 90 before 2026. They are not just recording recipes, but trying to capture deeper knowledge about when to trust your hands over your head, when 적당히 actually means something to you can feel but not measure. The same MZ generation that made 손맛 할머니 videos go viral with millions of views is now shifting from passive consumers to active preservers. They are a bridge generation, digital natives who can still access analog wisdom if they move fast enough. You can be part of this bridge too. Ask your family's cooks to teach you not just what to add, but when it feels right. Record that knowledge before it dies with them. Sonmat, that untranslated handtaste, isn't just about the Korean cooking. It's about every skill that lives in someone's hands, every wisdom you can't Google, every knowledge that dies when it first dies. In a world where AI can optimize everything, maybe the most valuable thing you can preserve is the human ability to know when something feels right, and to care enough about the people you are feeding to get it perfect. One 적당히 at a time. Let's recap the three Korean words from today we learned. 손맛, 적당히, and the last is 소멸. So next time you taste something that reminds you of home or what someone cooked with that indefinable touch that makes food taste like love, you will know you are experiencing 손맛, that irreplaceable human wisdom that lives in the space between precision and intuition. That 손맛 you learned today, you will be glad to meet it again in Korean headlines, Korean from the Daily News, and subscribe and learn it with me. Thank you.